Hello and welcome back to the In Your Mind podcast. You're with Kiz and Breezy. This week we're going to be doing a Q&A. So we've been asked some questions and we're going to answer them. Let's jump into it. So first question we've got, is spirituality something you had to put effort into, or did you find it more came naturally? So I think for me, spirituality came about pretty naturally. I think I've always felt connected to the ocean, and that was probably my biggest draw into it. And I really only learnt the depth of my connection until I left it for so long and I went and lived away from it. And then I realised like the pull that I had to it. So I guess I'd just not really gone into how I thought about it. And then it made me delve into the meaning that it had behind it. Yeah, so I think also at low points or in hard times of my life, I've also felt drawn to more spiritual things or nature, even in general. So like the ocean and flowing water and elements like greenery and grass and natural scenery. It's just healing. And I think questioning that, and I got quite curious about why that actually is, really led me to think about it more of think about nature in kind of like a special, sacred way, which led me into spirituality and thinking, just having like a lot of gratitude towards it. So I think in that way it came naturally. Yeah, it wasn't like something that I went, oh, I like the idea of spirituality, I'm going to delve into it. It was something that definitely I was curious about, but I was forced into it. No, that wasn't right. I was forced into spirituality.
How did you get there?
No, it came naturally, and it came through curiosity and really thinking about how the elements were so special to me and why that is. And then I was thinking, well, it's really what makes the world go round, and feeling this connection to it. Yeah, just a very natural process, I'd say. What about you? Would you say you're a spiritual person?
I don't know. I don't really like the term.
Why is that?
I think it has so many connotations. But I guess that's like the same with any label. I guess I just don't fuck with labels.
Yeah.
But I think it made sense to me in a lot of ways. So I think it came naturally in the way of learning about and understanding it. My version of spirituality, I guess, has a lot to do with my subconscious, like deep subconscious self. And trying to uncover that and stay focused and not get distracted is very difficult.
Yeah.
And that's something I've had to work at for a very long time, and I still am. Yeah.
Yeah. I think my way kind of came about it through that a little bit. Like if you have low points of your life and you think, why is this? You're kind of forced to go into that shadow or into those darker parts of yourself to really understand like what it is that you're missing or what it is that you're yearning for or why you're not as happy. And for me, it then made me think, okay, well, what does make me happy? The ocean, why is that? Trees, why is that? Water, like earth, like all these elements. It's like, oh, well, that kind of makes sense. Like we are born on this earth and they are integral parts of it that work in a system. So yeah, but exploring it through yourself, and I think a huge part of spirituality is exploring the inner workings of your mind.
And the feedback that it gives to what's outside of that.
Do you mean like intuition?
I just mean like the world in general, you know, because like when I began to learn and hear about like the law of attraction and like,
So what is the law of attraction for somebody who doesn't know?
well, it's basically like attracts like the opposite of a magnet essentially. And when you are on at a vibrational energy or in a state, like an emotional state, is a really easy example to give. That corresponds to positive and negative. They're not actually positive and negative. That's just how you view them through your identity. But all these different states have different outcomes, and the lower the frequency, a lot of times feels like a negative outcome, and a lot of high frequencies feels like a lot of positive things. So for example, like loss and sadness and anger is a lower frequency than love or joy and happiness.
So what are some of the outcomes? Like what are you attracting in a low frequency?
Well, like a really great example is like a radio, right? You tune the channels, you got to tune the frequency to get the station that you want.
Yeah.
The law of attraction works the same way. Like you have to tune yourself to the vibrational energy of the things you want in your life. You know, and it's basically just like being aware and paying attention to what you're paying attention to, because your mind shows you what you're looking for. Yeah, it's like the RAS, your reticular activating system. The filter in which you see the world lets through more things that you're looking for, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it's just more relevant to you, so you see more of it.
Yeah. It's like if you have one, like the RAS is, for example, you heard somebody say something about the colour green that day, and then your head, unconsciously, you go, oh, that's a really nice green tree. And you might not even pair it to green. Like, I feel like that's not a very clear example.
Well, it's like when you can hear your name being called out at a concert or in a noisy nightclub. Like you can sift that out of so much other noise.
Because it's something you're searching for.
Because it's something that you've heard over and over again. And like it's a pattern that's embedded in you.
Yeah.
That you can recognize easily.
Yeah. So going back to the law of attraction, what about if you are focusing on higher frequency things? What would that get you?
You get what you look for, basically. So yeah, whatever you are searching for, you will find.
Your focus.
Yeah. So if you want a high energy, if you want love and joy and your goals and dreams to come true, then like you just have to look for the opportunities that can lead there, or, which is actually probably the more accurate thing to do, is to act as if it has already happened and time/reality will catch up.
So you're in the state to receive it, and so your body is like ready and prepared for it and already knows it. It already has the programming for it.
Well, your brain is just sending the signal to the matrix, if you want to call it, to like it's signaling to it like, this is what I'm putting out, this is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just starts churning it out like a machine almost.
Yeah. I think like the law of attraction sometimes can sound like quite woo-woo or quite like out there. But really when you think about it, it's like, okay, if somebody has a smile and is really happy, how are you going to receive them? You're also going to receive them usually with a smile and being happy. Like you're like, if you're really sad and you're grumpy and you're like, I'm not having a good time, I'm not great, you're not going to feel great. If you're like, okay, like I'm like ready for the day, I'm putting on a smile, I'm in the state of to receive happiness and joy. That's what you're going to get. And that's really all it is. Like,
Yeah.
it's actually a quite simple.
Yeah. Like, when you really boil it down like that, it makes sense. And I think that's kind of how I fell into it.
Yeah.
Like, depending on your mood or depending on your vibrational state, the same situation can have two different outcomes. Like, for example, if you finish work and you walk to your car and you've got a flat tire and you don't have a spare, like someone who is seeking a low vibration would think this has ruined my day. It's going to cost money perhaps to fix this tire. I don't know what I'm going to do. This sucks. Now I'm angry.
Yeah.
Or the person on a higher vibration it wouldn't affect them as much, and they're open to more possibilities like, oh, there was a cafe down the street that I really want to try the coffee at. And now that my tire's flat, I have the opportunity to go to see. Or someone walks past and you meet them and they help you fix your tire, and you've just met someone you would have never otherwise met. And like, I think that's how fate works. Like, that's what fate is. Like, you can choose your own fate, I believe. Anyway, yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah, I actually experienced pretty much exactly that at work today. I said, oh, how's your day been? And he went, yeah, really good. I had a great day. Oh, my car did break down three times, but, it was fine. And I was like, you said you had a really good day, but you also said your car broke down 3 times. Like, how is that? And he's like, oh, yeah, like, still did everything I wanted to do. Like, it wasn't a big deal. Managed it. It's fine. Yeah. It makes a huge, huge impact on you, but also everybody around you. Like, he could have come to work being like, oh, I've had a terrible day. Like, it's all sucked. And then I'd want to avoid that person, I don't want to be around somebody in that state. And the knock-on
effect of that, like, because they affect you and you affect someone else and they affect someone else. And the spread of that, what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
Like, that energy does circle around, literally circles around and comes back to you. So the more good you put out, the more good you're likely to get back.
Yeah.
Like, it's just strictly statistically speaking.
Yeah. And that's literally what happened as well. Like, I was speaking to you about this when I called you in the car. And so I just had like a situation come up where somebody got the wrong food or something. Like, it wasn't the end of the world. I come back and I tell the manager about it, and he responds in a way that I don't know, was a bit of a lower mood. And
you reacted instead of responded.
I was like, oh, okay. But like, I just felt like it wasn't the right thing to do in that situation, and I got down about it and I took it on a little bit. And then I then went to pick up some food, and he was like, okay, take this to table 53, like take it to table 53. And I was like, yep. And he's like, oh, that wasn't very enthusiastic. What's wrong? Because every other time I come, I'm like, yeah, or like, I'm just like,
yes, sir.
I'm like having fun with him, or I'm like, yup, let's do it, or like something like that. And as soon, he could sense it in my voice of like, I literally just said, yep. And he knew instantly and responded. And if he didn't, I would have still been in that cycle. And it snapped me back into it. I was like, oh, what am I doing? I've just been like affected.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't want to take that to other people and keep spreading it, like as you said.
Yeah. I think like your energy state has momentum, and that's like what you're describing.
Yeah.
Like someone who's down in the dumps and they feel good, they sort of like start to self-sabotage to bring them back to feeling bad, because that's their most comfortable, quote unquote, or the pattern that they've been in for the longest time. So it's just force of habit rather than
and something,
any external circumstance necessarily. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And something that they identify with now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like for you, you're in a cheery mood more than a down mood. So now when you come out of that, life sort of pulls you back up into joy, because that's that's a state that you're used to being in.
And I felt blessed that somebody was able to bring me out of that too. Like just by such a simple comment of, oh, what's wrong? And I was like, oh, why? And then he's like, oh, well, you said, yeah. And it made me also be really thankful for that interaction.
Yeah.
So you came to spirituality through the law of attraction.
Yeah, I took a scientific route, if that's even possible.
Yeah.
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 Because it makes sense with like the quantum mechanics and the physics aspects of it.
Yeah.
And everyone reaches things differently. And will feel initially drawn to something.
Yeah. I'd like to know if other people who have sort of come to a similar conclusion, if they started at the same place that I did. Because I don't really know anyone else who has. Everyone's sort of seemed to have come from I don't know how to even describe it.
The woo-woo. Or like the crystals.
It's not from a place of logic. It was from a place of like emotion and feeling.
Yeah.
Because they're both connected.
Yeah.
You just come in from two different ways. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you definitely find, you said before, spirituality when you feel at your lowest. And like a lot of people find religion and God when they're like in jail and lose people.
Well, it just makes you start to question things and question how you could get out of it. Like, I think coming to the realization that like it's a state, like a negative state that you're in and not wanting to be in it anymore. And then unpacking like how you could get out of it and what has helped you in the past. Yeah.
When things start to go wrong, you start to ask more questions than you usually do. And so I think you get closer to the truth.
Well, I think it comes through interrogating your thoughts and really going, is that true? Is that true? Is that really how I feel? And a lot of feeling comes into it, and it is subjective truth a lot of the time. Like, what has worked for you?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not even truths about myself. I think I sort of came there afterwards. It was just truth about how I viewed other things to be.
Did you view the truth as something, like, you got there through questioning it and you couldn't question it any longer, or like how?
Well, I just was beginning to see a common theme between the answers to the questions I was asking. And you sort of read between the lines.
So the reading between the lines aspect sounds like a little bit like intuition again.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Comes back to feeling.
It's just like connections you've made. It's hard to like describe that. Like, I guess because I've done the same thing over and over and over and over again in my life so many times. Like that's kind of how I grew up. That.
What were the same things?
Like farm work is very repetitive. And like bus rides to school every single day for 7 years, like it's the same thing day after day after day after day. And eventually, like, I don't know if you just become hypersensitive to anything that's different, and then you start to like analyze why it's different, and you start to kind of understand triggers and responses and why some triggers give some responses and how those are linked between each other. Yeah, I feel like I'm not making any sense.
Well, I think what I understand from that is there are patterns in your life that continue, and a lot of the time you don't question it until there's something that's become slightly off. And that it kind of throws you back into the conscious curiosity of it.
Well, it's just so much room. Like, because you do the same thing over and over again, that a lot of the processes become unconscious.
Yeah.
And so you have so much more bandwidth for new information to come in, I feel like.
Yeah.
That's if you don't get consumed by it, by like being bogged down in the negative energy that could be in the everyday.
And I guess that's the really lovely thing about human nature is that our brains try to work an autopilot so we can like decrease our expenditure of energy. So it goes, okay, these are things we do every single day. I don't have to think much about it. It's like tap on the bus, tap off the bus. Yeah, don't have to think about that. The first 2 times, maybe. But then it just becomes habit.
Yeah.
And then the things that like maybe if there was a new student that got on your bus to school, like that would throw it off and be like, huh.
That would trigger it, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, like, I would sleep, and I'm sure everyone else has felt like this as well if they've, like, done bus rides regularly or even just train trips or whatever. Like, I would fall asleep, and then as I was coming back into consciousness, I would know exactly where we were before I opened my eyes. Like, you just get in the same routine. And
You know the bumps and you know the sways and you know like...
well, you know the way the bus is sitting when it's stopped?
Yeah.
Like where you're on the shoulder of the road
Yeah.
somewhere, like all of the details start to come out.
Yeah, so how does that translate to your spiritual side?
Well, I think you just, like, you see the details and just ask questions. Like, why is that? And eventually, like, you start getting a lot of the same answers. And the last question I kind of ask myself to validate something would be like, okay, I think this is the case, especially if it's about someone else. And then I would ask myself, if I was them or if they were me, would I think or do the same thing? And that, for me, has kind of validated, or it's had a pretty high strike rate when it's come to understanding other people, like empathy, I guess.
I was going to say that, empathy.
Yeah. Like, it's just, I guess it's overthinking, but I always bring it back to like reality almost and say, okay, is what I've built in my head, you know, realistic? And if it's not, then why? If it is, then, you know, you sort of run the program and see what happens.
Yeah. I think I'm really lucky because what you just said, like if I was in their shoes, I would do the same thing. Like that kind of concept. Is that what you kind of Yeah. I think I've really had that embedded in me my whole life, like my whole childhood. Because when I would ever have a conflict and bring it up to my parents, that's the answer that they would give me. Is like, you don't know what they're going through. And you don't know if you had their life or if you were in their situation, like, how do you know that you wouldn't react the same? And I think was really helpful for, creating more empathy. So that's really true for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get it wrong. But after you realize you got it wrong, you can see why you got it wrong. Like, you're always learning when you're approaching it like that. You can't really, there's no real failure, you know.
So I think this kind of conversation ties into spirituality really, for me, with the concept that like we are all one, because that is like something that I think is core within spirituality beliefs. And for this too, like for the empathy for other people and for like emotions, it's like realizing that we are all capable of having the emotions and the situations that other people have. And then thinking about like where we've come from and humanity has come from, and just even this earth, like we're all part of space or the universe. And yeah, it gives you empathy and gives you like
It's all the same shit, bro.
a collective, you realize it's a collective experience, that everybody have experiences like you. Yeah, and I think with that and knowing that everybody experiences the emotions that I experience has really helped my anxiety. Like, I know I've talked about that before, but I think that's a core thing too. It's like everybody can have these experiences, everybody can feel these emotions, and it makes me feel part of it.
Yeah. And going back to like, you find it more frequently when you're down. Like, I think it forces you, well, one, it gives you experience, and so you can relate to someone else's experience, and so you can have greater empathy. But also, like we were talking about before, you're really like forced to look at the details. Like when you're in pain or something is going wrong, like you're looking around, you're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Whereas when things are going good, like you're just cruising.
Yeah.
Like you're not, like you never learn anything when you win, basically.
Learning's in the failures
Exactly. Yeah.
or in the tough times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're not really failures for that reason. Like, they're huge learning times that are beneficial and needed in the cycle of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think those who are atheists in their beliefs, like don't have a belief in spirituality or religion, I think we've been distracted from that, and we've sort of been taught to believe that our pain just means we're sick and we need like a pill or a medication. And, you know, that's how you manage the symptoms. You never really ever get better, especially mentally, because I feel like that's what spirituality and religion does for people. Like, it gives them the mental health side of things, you know, like you work out for your body and you meditate for your mind. And meditation is just, for me, I think, in my opinion, is just analyzing the details, asking the questions, looking into the self, you know, and really, like, it's the same thing.
See, I would say that I would have called myself atheist before, and it was due to not understanding the concepts really, or like the definitions too. Like, I think it's hard sometimes to grapple with the concept or the definition of God or the universe or spirituality, because everything has so many connotations and so much history that it means, okay, if I believe in God, or if I believe in spirituality, or if I believe in some sort of concept, there's all these things that are tied into that. And that for me was like the biggest thing of like, oh, well, I don't believe that, and I don't believe that, and I don't believe that. But then it was really later that I was like, oh, well, I can just believe what I want to believe and take parts from like all the situations that I've learned, and that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. So I think it's more like when people who don't feel like they fit that mold of religion or spirituality or God or something, that they go atheist. But I'm sure if you questioned and you asked, they would have some beliefs, belief in self, or like.
But why do they not align with it? Is it because the exposure they've had to it
has
is
been negative,
divisive in nature?
Yeah.
Then really it's not being represented, because the essence of religion and spirituality is oneness.
Yeah.
So
It's
like,
just concepts.
they're not atheists, they just haven't been taught what it actually means.
Well, I just think like label, like as you said, you're like, oh, I don't like labels. Like, I think they can be like really strong and really abrasive sometimes, especially in the way that we can use them in this society.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fine to like identify with being atheist. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think it's just interesting to just question concepts in general.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with being atheist.
Yeah.
I was atheist for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't really know what I am now. I just know that
You have beliefs.
there's more than nothing,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that for sure.
Yeah. Well, that was one question that got a bit of a deeper dive than
Hey, if you ask the question, you want the answer.
Yeah, it's true.
It comes back.
It comes back. So this is a bit of a change. What is a glow up? What is a glow up? So I feel like glow ups are really in the public eye on social media especially, and like YouTube videos, it's like glow up, or like celebrities, it's like glow up, or you're wanting to have a glow up or being like inspired by someone to glow up. But yeah, so a glow up, we'll just say the definition of it, is a slang term used to describe a significant transformation, typically in physical appearance, that is perceived as an improvement. I thought it would be interesting to also touch on like the glow up aspect of like a balanced, all encompassing life glow up, because I think that is where it can be really important and really like actually have impact on your life. So it says it's like a transformation in appearance, but a transformation in appearance also changes so much when you change like your body language and like your confidence and the way you use your voice and your education. Like all of that has like a huge impact on how you perceive somebody and how I perceive myself. And if I've thought, okay, I've really improved, I really feel like I've like leveled up or something like that. And for me, that's like really what a glow up is like getting into the things I want to change and then actually putting in like actionable steps and doing it, and then reaping the rewards of that, like feeling more confident, feeling more empowered, more disciplined, like all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then the other question that's like attached to that is, could there be an impact of endorphins in a glow up? So endorphins are hormones that are usually released in exercise or activity. So they can like be released from exercise, like sport, from love, from sex, and from sleep. So endorphins are also usually released when there's pain or stress, and they message your body for a reaction, like they are messengers. Endorphins are always temporary, but vary in the length of time that they occur. Yeah, so the rate of release and the length of the endorphin spike will be different from person to person, and also depends on what activity you're doing. So like exercise, and they usually start about 30 minutes after exercise as well, although a runner's high can last a few hours. I guess the question of could there be an impact of endorphins in a glow up, it kind of comes back to like the energy or the state the person is in when you're meeting them, or like how you're presenting your image to the world, like how you're showing up. Like if you've just been active and energized, then that's what you're portraying, and it could come off as like a glow up, or like, you know, you're in your peak state. So it can kind of relate to that in a way. And yeah, I reckon it definitely could be perceived as a glow up because you're active and you're confident and you're feeling good. And I think it's definitely an important part of it because, like, for me, exercise keeps me regulated and keeps me grounded. It keeps me grounded in my body, but also the diligence of doing it as well. So it has multiple parts to it. And I definitely think it's involved. On to the next question. Another change of topic. Do you believe in soulmates? That there is one for everybody or multiple? And where did the idea of soulmates come from? So, firstly, my belief. This sounds heartbreaking, but I don't believe in soulmates. Or I do, okay, actually, I'm going to go back on it. Okay. I believe in soulmates, but I believe soulmate is just like connecting with a human on a soul level, and that it can happen with more than one person. I don't believe that there is just one person you could be soulmates with, no. What about you?
I think it's just a level of connection with someone. I don't think people are walking around like your soulmate ready to be met. I think it's like a level in a game. Like you have to have a certain amount of experience with a person to reach that level of intimacy, I guess. Emotionally and even physically as well. And I think soulmates, like the more popular view or like definition of soulmates, I feel like some people can just reach that level quickly, and they would say those people are soulmates. Would you agree?
I don't know what you mean by people can reach that level. Like
they just click instantly and they just go like...
I think it comes back to the thing of like knowing yourself really well and being able to empathize with another human really well and to understand them really well because you know yourself really well. And I think it comes from like kind of the same way you viewed it, as that you're on the same level, or you've like in a video game, like you've got the same level of depth within yourself though. Like you have to be on the same level in yourself and you meet somebody else that also knows themselves the same way and at the same depth. And then you're able to openly communicate that to each other.
It doesn't have to be the same depth, but you definitely need to be past a certain threshold.
Relatively the same depth, you know.
Yeah. I think a lot of conflict comes from people who haven't done the same amount of, what's the word?
Inner work?
No. Introspection.
Same thing.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I agree. So you believe that there's multiple soulmates?
I think everyone has the potential to be a soulmate. It would just take a lot more time, energy, and sacrifice to reach that level with that person. Because you can have soulmates that aren't your romantic partner,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And I think the choice of a romantic partner for me is like that it's a choice, and that you have decided that like your pairing works really well, and like your commonalities like align, and that, but like
I'm not sure about alignment, you know. I think your default setting should complement someone else's. Like your weakness is their strength and vice versa. I think that's the thing. It's not alignment, it's complementary. It's like inverse opposites attract.
Yeah.
But I guess you could say that's alignment in some way.
Well, that's aligning because you're like whole as one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you cover each other's bases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that has to be naturally. Like if one person has the expectation to feel their groove or whatever it is, like then you get a lot of conflict. And some people can change, but it's only if they're willing.
Yeah.
And if they've met themselves to the deep enough level that the behavior pattern that you have a problem with is buried at. You know what I mean? Like if they're, for an example, if their pattern was built as a coping mechanism for the way they grew up as a child, that will be way harder to rewrite, regardless of whether they want to change that about themselves or not. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So aligning those those patterns from childhood and being upfront about them, or like looking for somebody that complements that.
Well, see, I think and you can change to complement anyone you want to,
Yeah.
but there just has to be a level of respect, connection, love, whatever you want to call it, to change who you are and sort of meet them in the middle, like you morph together rather than one person changes to fit the other. Because like there may be one aspect of you that you change to meet them, but there'll be aspects of them that they've changed to meet you.
Yeah.
And we don't think about that very much as well.
Yeah. It just starts to happen and starts to morph when you have that like level of acceptance and connection and like what you bring into the relationship and what you see as valuable and what you've learned from them.
Yeah.
And what you take on.
Yeah. A really obvious example is like when you're with someone for a long time, you just start talking like them.
Yeah.
Like a lot of your speech is easily malleable because it changes all the time and someone can influence that. And it's not as deeply written as, you know, someone's
Behaviours. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So where did the idea of soulmates come from? So I looked this one up a little bit, and it goes back to the Greek philosopher Plato in his text. Okay, I'm not going to be able to say this, Brendan.
Symposium.
Wrote about the reasons behind the human yearning for a soulmate. So Plato also quotes the
poet Aristophanes. Aristophanes.
as saying that all humans were once united with their other half, but Zeus split them apart out of fear and jealousy. But although the concept of a soulmate might have existed for thousands of years, the actual term was only properly introduced in the 19th century. So a guy named Samuel Taylor Coleridge, in a letter in 1822, wrote, "To be happy in married life, you must have a soulmate," he wrote. And that's kind of where the coined term soulmate came from. But Plato was the first one really to describe the longing for a mate.
Yeah, the splitting in half is something I've heard of before.
Well, it kind of comes to that scene in like lots of other cultures, like the Japanese, like yin yang,
Adam and Eve,
the splitting, which I think is a really interesting concept too, like masculinity, femininity.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Yeah.
And they're complementary.
And that's in spirituality as well.
Yeah.
That's like a
Duality.
huge part of it.
Yeah, 100%.
Is like the law of duality, or opposites.
Yep.
That you need to be complementary. And this is a bit of a side note, but like with femininity and masculinity, I think it's important to always like say, because I think it can be misinterpreted sometimes that women can have masculine traits and have to have masculine traits as well as feminine traits too.
Yeah, both have both.
Both have both.
Just to different varying degrees.
Different levels, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And with coming back to soulmate, I've tried to find somebody who has qualities that I have less of. Yeah, and to meet kind of those lowering levels.
Well, I like to think back to caveman times. You know, like we had roles to survive as a species, men and women.
Rolls.
Yeah.
Bread rolls. Like stomach flaps.
Are you being serious?
Like rolls. What do you mean
Like
rolls?
tasks.
Oh my gosh. I was being serious. I thought you meant like flaps. And I was like, I had no idea. How interesting.
Just to keep them warm in the winter.
We need some extra flubber. Flubber?
Oh my god. Yeah, the men would hunt and the women would, you know, protect the children, nurture, and, you know,
Yeah.
all the other stuff. And both are necessary. Like specialization is a core part of being a human.
Yeah.
And we function best when we operate like that.
In our best roles.
In a role,
Yeah.
you know.
I think like a...
When we're specific and unique to ourselves individually. Like, I'm good at very specific things and I can help someone who is good at a set of another specific things, and us together is 1 + 1 = 4 instead of, you know what I mean? Like when you come together with someone else,
Yeah. With their
you're more
strengths and your
powerful
strengths.
together than you are separately.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think like an aspect of that is like us coming together, and the things that you're really good at and the things that I struggle with is something that we've been open about. And like Brendan will know the things that I struggle with and maybe the things that he might need to step in with at times. And then I also have parts where I can be helpful in his weaknesses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. Like, I feel like we're trying to eliminate our differences
Yeah.
when really that's like the most important thing. Like if someone disagrees with you or believes a different thing, like we hate them,
Yeah.
you know. And division is like the opposite of what we need.
Yeah. I think a big part of it though is being like really honest in what you aren't good at. And it's something that's hard to say. Like you want to be whole and you want to be as good as you can within everything. But in order to gain success and to learn those things, you need to be honest with where you're at and the things you actually need to progress in or need help in or need support in.
Yeah.
And knowing somebody that has like really good communication skills or something like that, like you can reach out to them and be honest about that and actually gain some really cool insight, or you might use some of their skills at times. It's like the same thing with like business and like hiring people that are really good at one specific task.
Yeah.
Because they know it really well and they could do it in half the time and half the money that it would take to get you to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much for tuning in.
And the questions.
Huh?
And for the questions.
And for the questions. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for being here.
Are you telling that to me or to them?
To them.
Oh, you're just looking
I'm just
straight
looking at
me.
you.
Yeah.
Because it's something we believe, I think, you know. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your support. If you enjoyed it, give it a review or share it to a friend. Thank you very much, guys. We'll see you next week.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Doodle pip.